My name is Eileen Quintana, and I am 63 years old, and I live in Spanish Fork, Utah. When he was born, you couldn't tell when he was born. And as he got to be about 3 months old, I started noticing some differences where he was a little bit more floppy, just couldn't hold himself up like my other kids did. And there were just certain differences within him that I noticed. And so I took him to the doctor and asked, the doctor, he seems a little bit different than my other children. Make sure, that everything's all right. And the doctor told me, he's fine. And it, just children, babies are different, and just give him some time and everything. And he may be just lacking some muscle coordination and stuff like that, that he's a little bit behind in. So I thought, okay, no problem. But when he was 8 months old, I really started noticing. So I took him back, but it wasn't until I believe he was about 18 months old when they told me, I told the doctor, there is something different about my baby Cameron. And I told them all the signs, and right away he looked at my son's hand and then looked at my son's mouth and tongue and all of that. And he said, let's go in and let's get a chromosome count done. And they did the count, and it took, oh my goodness, a long time to get the results back. But he told me, I don't want to say, but let's see what the test results come back. And so I had no idea what the doctor was going to say. So it was very heart-wrenching to wait all those months. It was like 6 months to wait on that answer. But when the answer came, he told me, yeah, your son has trisomy 21, mosaic Down syndrome. And that's why you were seeing the differences. And he said, here's some referrals. You can get a genetic counseling done, and we can set you up with that. And really, that's how the whole thing began. But so Cameron actually was diagnosed rather late. Many people who have Down syndrome, they know right at birth, but he wasn't diagnosed until he was about 18 months old. As American Indian families, we look at disability in a little bit different way. We don't treat really any different. We do the same things that are always done. My baby, I raised all my babies. He laid in a cradle board, a Navajo cradle board that we built for him, so that he was, nice and strong and could sleep good. And it was a good way for him to feel safe and swaddled when he was a newborn. And he used his cradle board for quite a while. And I played with him. We did all the other things that we did with all of our other children, and didn't treat him really like there was anything wrong. We just treated him the regular way. And one part of waiting for the answer, when I was really waiting, was I was worried, yes, but my traditional teaching taught me, even with disability within an individual, that individual brings their own gift to the universe. They bring compassion. They bring, in Navajo, we call it kinship, our obligation to take care of each other. In our traditional Navajo way, that relationship to everything around you in the universe is key to life. Your kinship tie ties you to the responsibility of sharing whatever you have. We knew that he has gifts, and in the traditional way, disabled people helps the community figure out what it means to be human through and through. Yeah, that individual may be a slower comprehending things, but that brings out the best in the community. Everyone goes back and helps that individual. If he needs help with comprehending, if it's physical, you take the extra time, you take the extra to be able to help him. Way back in centuries back, when there were the most vulnerable within the village are the ones that get the most attention in Native American society. So that would include children. It would include elders. It would include disabled people. So those that are most vulnerable is who the village goes to help and make sure they're right in the middle. And all the stronger ones surround them to help them. And that's our own teachings. I was shocked when I came out into this society because it's very selfish in many ways. You have the most powerful and the most affluent up on top, making all the decisions. And then you have everything else lower in society. And meaning that what I noticed, my observation was that the most vulnerable, elders, children, disabled people, animals, nature, water, mountains, are all on the bottom. That's been, I think, one of the hardest things to see in his lifetime is how this dominant society treats my child. When I found out all of this, we started him in the early learning help interaction. Children Who Count was a Kids Who Count was a program that runs down here. And we started that when he was about 3, I think it was, 3 years old. And they had somebody come out to the home, and the whole family would crawl around, and help him to learn how to crawl and, do all the things that you do. And they gave us some really good ideas, which we did use. We bathed. We did a lot of things that were, a little bit odd at times. We gave him mud baths just to make sure that he felt the different sensations. Because I noticed when he was a little guy, little tiny infant, he didn't like the feel of a lot of things. I'd take his shoes off, and I would try to set him down on the grass, and he would lift his little legs. And he'd lift his little legs, not wanting to touch the grass with his feet. And being Native American, I want him to feel all the textures, all the universe around him. So we just try to always think positive and don't let him think that there's anything wrong with him. And he did very, very well. He went all through high school, well, grade school and middle school and high school, and graduated. I did keep him one extra year in high school, just so because he really enjoyed the culinary classes that he was taking. And he ended up graduating and walking with his class with a 3.6 GPA. I have absolutely no regrets about my life. I wish, if there was anything I would change, that time period of waiting to get a response was very scary. If there was a way to change that, that would be the only thing that I would think. The only other thing I think too that sticks out in my mind is when you have a disabled child, you're constantly looking for the dangers. You know, uh, kids bullying him. When he was younger, I would catch certain instances where kids were bullying him and being mean to him, but he didn't catch on that they were being mean, which is really a blessing in disguise. Sometimes we would have to sit him down and talk to him. When people say this, how do you feel? When they call you retarded, that was one of the words that the kids would say. And he didn't know what that meant. And we just told him, when they tell you, say things like that, you know, you need to share that with your teacher. If mom, you know, if you want to, you can have them call me or whatever, wherever it is. As he got older, and he was getting paid and he was carrying money, I was always afraid of people taking advantage of him, because it takes them a while to count out his change, to figure out. And so we used to do practice with money all the time. When you go in to buy something, always have an idea how much that costs. And we tried to work with him on making sure that he wasn't. And there were instances where it did happen, where there were bad people that took advantage of him and stole money from him. Another thing probably is just teaching him how to budget. He got himself in way over his head a couple of times, and we really had to work with him. And but I didn't want to take over all of his money. We don't have a power of attorney over him, because I want him to be as independent as possible. He does live at home though, just to make sure that he has a good place to live and everything, and that he's not, you know, where we can't protect him. There is absolutely nothing wrong with being disabled. You're just a little bit different. You have to, you live life, you do all the things, and that a regular person does, and you just have to learn and take it, you know, as it comes, and be positive about it and everything. There are some things, you know, that still kind of it's hard. I've heard him saying his prayers, and in his prayers he would ask, please, I want a girlfriend like all my friends. I want a girlfriend, and I want to get married. I want to have children, and I want to be able to take care of my children. But, you know, as a mother, it breaks your heart because you don't know the answers to that. He's not able to drive. We've tried to work on that, but he's not able to do that. And all we can do is, as a family, is just support. all the things that he's doing now. And if he ever meets somebody that inspires him and that he falls in love with, we're going to be there for him. In American Indian or Navajo belief, we have a very specific teaching, and it's the concept of something that my mother used to always say. My mother used to always say, you are a sacred, holy child on Mother Earth. And she would always ask, what does this mean? How do you act as a sacred, holy being? How do you speak as a sacred person? How do you conduct your life as a sacred, holy child of Mother Earth? How do you treat the natural elements around you? Water, wind, plants, mountains, your environment that you live in. How do you treat humans? How do you treat animals, the four-legged beings, and the flying creatures, the creatures that swim? If you are a holy, sacred child of Mother Earth, all of those are as important as you are. So you need to develop your thinking to a higher plane so that you are able to benefit from knowing that you did your best when you interact with all things in the universe. And I would say probably that's contributed a lot to our family. How do you see yourself? It's very empowering to think, who am I? And to have a very definite answer. I am a holy, sacred child of Mother Earth. When you have that knowledge in your head, it kind of gives you confidence. It gives you somewhere to start. It teaches you that you are special and that you can also derive, once you mature and are able to comprehend, animals are considered sacred too. What can they teach you? Why are they sacred if they're as valuable as you are as a human being? And what about the water? Rivers that flow, lakes, the ocean. So I think that's a teaching that has helped Cameron. He's able to connect through the ceremonies, even though he's Down syndrome. We go back home for ceremonies. We have him involved with family when we do any kind of cultural event, the powwows, his dancing, the songs that we sing, the prayers that we do, just all the things that we do. I think it helps to ground him so that he is able to really see what an amazing human being he is. I would say that disabled people each have their talents. They each come with a gift, but it is your responsibility to figure out what that gift is. If you don't search for it, you're not going to find it. So be human, be compassionate, be really inspired to search out what it means to be a Cameron, or the patient that you're working on and bring that out, because most times when we talk to other disabled people, not very many people spend a lot of attention on them. That's what I noticed, which was very, very sad, because so, they need that attention, and they've got so much to give. Cameron's given so much to our family, and I can truly tell you our whole family revolves around Cameron. With Cameron, we plan all of our things around him because we want to involve the full family. Our family is our family because of him and because of every individual within our unit. So we have to consider everyone's ability and their gifts, their talents. And to be able to do that, you have to plan and take that into account. So providers need to do likewise. You know, it's the culture out here to be very time oriented. Yeah. You know? And so they don't give the child or the a disabled person the time needed to really be able to convey whatever it is that they want to have heard. No, a lot of hardly, you know, American Indians make up only less than 2% of total population in the United States. So we're very much on the margins, in the marginalized population communities. So not very many people know the cultural differences. You know, we were told about different supports through the government, and you know, like SSI and different things. A lot of that information is very hard for people of color to understand, because anytime you're dealing with federal government, you know, it's so hard to understand or comprehend exactly what they do. And it's not culturally, cultural norms are not taken into account. It's very linear thinking, which is far from a lot of people's lifestyle and the way that they do things. We do need to advocate and make changes. We've had Cameron apply for jobs, and he went, you know, so far to apply for a job, and they told him, yes, you're hired, we need somebody right away. And so we spent the money to go out and buy the clothing necessary, the shoes necessary. And then when he went in, the owner said, we didn't know you were disabled or that you couldn't catch on quick. And he said, we can't use you. And which was very devastating to Cameron, because he wanted that job, and we had to explain to him that that was not a good man to hold that against him, and had to explain to him, you have no, it's not your fault. This is not your fault. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. He just didn't know that. In all of the work experiences that he's had, they've never really, you know, let him grow in the company. It's always been lower and just no thought to anything better, which is sad, because I know his ability and I know how he can contribute, and it's not being given the opportunity to be able to advance for himself and for the company that he works for. I've been working with Title VI Indian Ed for 22 years, and I used to volunteer many years before the 22 years, used to volunteer with the parents up in Alpine School District. And then the consortium that we were a part of disbanded, and we went, Nebo Indian Ed decided to go on their own. And so I applied, to be, help in setting up the Indian Ed for Nebo. And I was fortunate enough to get that. And we just have been doing this for all of these years, the main mission of the group is to have our students succeed academically, but backing up culturally all the information needed to make their academic pursuits more successful. So I do a summer school in the summertime. During the month of June, I run 2 after-school homework labs out of 2 different sites here in the district, and we have all kinds of things. When my doctor told us that the diagnosis, I asked questions: what support services do we have locally, and how do I contact them? And then as soon as we started getting ready for school, going to your school and asking those questions. What support services do you have for my child, and how does it work, and what does it entail, and what would be my responsibilities? There's a lot of community resources listed a lot of times within your own local governments. Search those out, because you don't have to struggle alone, and you shouldn't struggle alone. Rely on those around you that are like-minded, and it helps a tremendous amount. And there's always ways that you can access these services. So keep on asking those questions until you find an answer. Don't give up.